Model Making Guru is sponsored by emodels.co.uk, your one-stop shop for all your model making needs. emodels.co.uk. Make something awesome. Hey everyone, it's Foxx from Model Making Guru here. Hello and welcome to part 4 of our build of the Bandai Master Grade Strike Rouge Mobile Suit plus Ootori Striker Backpack. Now if you remember in the last episode, which was a while ago, I do apologise, you all know what's been going on in Guru Towers here to keep me delayed from filming over the last few weeks. But in the last episode, we got the inner frame all sorted out pretty much. Painted up and metallicized. That's not a real word. Metallicized. It's done up. Anyway, it's painted. The arms and legs are loosely attached to the torso here. They're not fully squished on. But the arms and legs are now glued into their fixed poses, which won't make any sense at all when you see it like this. It really doesn't look anything like it's going to when it's finished, but you'll get the idea once you see the finished thing. So that's the torso and the frame and everything all done for the most part. So that's done. So what's the plan for today? Well, we have things on sticks. Yay! It's time to get the external armour all painted up. Now you can see here, I've gone ahead and primed it. I just kind of did it. And I just primed it because I'm going to show airbrushing anyway, so there's no point in showing every single stage of airbrushing. And showing you the painting is much more interesting than just showing you slapping primer on. I primed it with Ultimate Modelling Products Ultimate Primer Grey. Not black because I didn't want to use black. Black's a bit too dark for some of the light colours I'm going to have to paint. Ultimate Modelling Products Ultimate Primer is exactly the same stuff as Bajestan Alres or Ammo by MIG One-Shot Primer. All three of those things are exactly the same product. They just have a different label. It's the best primer in the world. It's just, you slap it on, don't think about it, you can't mess it up. So that's the primer. What about the paints? Well, for the paints, I've mixed up some colours. I mean, we've got off-the-shelf purple from Vallejo Mecha Colour. It's 69012. Love that colour. I have mixed up some custom colours, though. I have. And these tend to fall over a lot because they've got the thing on the bottom. I have what looks like white but isn't white. Trust me, it's a very, very, very light purple. In the same way on the Strike Rouge proper colours, it looks like white, but it's a very, very, very light pink. We have a medium sort of purple and a dark burgundy purple. It's actually purple, but it comes out like a burgundy or a Bordeaux colour. What's that? Clarity kind of colour. It's quite nice. So we got those 4 colours. Now what I'm probably going to do is use obviously the white, the off-white for the white parts, this for the medium colour parts, what would be the medium pink on the real thing, and then for the dark purple, the bright pink parts, or the kind of clarity coloured parts on the real Strike Rouge. I'm probably going to use this colour because I think this is a bit too similar to the Strike Rouge and it's a bit too Bordeaux-ish in clarity. So I'm probably going to use these 3 colours. If you're wondering what colours I used, as well as this as a base colour for some of them, I used Vallejo Game Colour, I think it was Bone White, I think it was. I can't remember. I've not got it with me, so I can't show you that one. I think it was Bone White. I used Mecha Colour White Grey, which is 69002. Bone White was more of a white, which I needed for that. Vallejo Game Colour Bloody Red 72010, and also Vallejo Game Colour Stormy Blue 72018. Pretty much those 4 colours plus the Bone White for touches to brighten the white up are all I used to mix my purples. And yeah, trying to get bright purples, not easy, it's really hard. So yeah, but anyway, I decided to go for more muted colours, so it's not going to be as bright and lurid as the original artwork that we planned, but it's going to look cool. So I need to get cracking. So the plan is, most of these parts will be painted in the off-white colour, and then for some of the other parts on this piece of foam here, if I can get it off without them all pinging off the sticks, for this piece here are your the dark parts, the sort of dark burgundy colour on the real Strike Rouge, which is the other reason I'm not too sure about this one, is it's a bit similar to the Strike Rouge. And then you have the bright pink parts like the feet and the middle of the torso there, the abs. So that's what I'm going to do. So we're going to get all these painted up. So I'm going to get the airbrush ready. I'm not sure how much I'll show of the airbrushing because I'm going to do these because Jordan wants it as a nice clean build. I'm not going to be doing any pre-shading or anything like that. I've been thinking about this. He wants it as a nice clean build, so I'm just going to go for nice solid colours on the plastic, on the primer, with panel lining and stuff later on. I might do a little bit of tiny chipping here and there, maybe at the end. We'll see how it comes out. But he did kind of want a nice clean build, so I don't want to go to town on the weathering. So I'm not going to do any pre-shading or anything like that. I don't think. I'll probably build up any shading like that in a post shading or an enamel gunk wash later on. We'll see how it comes out. So I'm just going to do flat colours. So I'll go and get the airbrush ready and we'll get cracking. Okay, so here we are in the good old trusty spray booth. Now if it looks a bit moist in there, it is. One handy trick for you when you're spraying in a spray booth, what you want to do is, especially if you're doing a gloss varnish, but even when you're doing paint, if you want to avoid dust in your paint, just give it a nice spray of water before you start the painting. I've just got a little spray bottle, little squeezy spray bottle with water, and I just mist it around the spray booth on the sides and the filter at the back and the tissue at the bottom, just so that any particles of dust that are down there aren't likely to be kicked up when you're spraying. It just helps keep things dust free. It's kind of a handy little tip for you. So anyway, here we are, we're painting away with my white mix. Now I did actually mix this a little bit thin, so I've got the pressure down in my airbrush down to about 15-16 psi, because I mixed it a little bit too thin, so I'm having to build up the colour slowly. Of course I'm using my Neo for Iwata TRN1 trigger airbrush. I love this thing, it's my 0.35, and as you can see I'm just building the colour up slowly. I'm not blapping the paint on all in one go. One of the key ways to apply any kind of paint or varnish or anything like that is always start with a thin misty key coat, which means a very thin misty layer first of all, just to bond with the primer and give the next coat that follows it something to grip onto, and then go ahead with your next main coat. But because this paint is a little bit too thin, I'm doing quite thin misty coats over and over. It's also of course better to build up your paint layer in these thin coats rather than all in one go. If you do it all in one go, you risk getting runs and dribbles and all kinds of surface weirdness, and of course the thicker you put the paint on, the more likely you are to get orange peel effects, which is an uneven surface, or that kind of glossy silky sheen some paints give you when you put them on too thick. If you apply Ammo by MIG paints too thickly all in one go, you'll get this horrible shiny effect where they're supposed to be matte. Okay, so that's all the armour parts with their base colours done. Only one bit shot in the spray booth there, because it was the same process for all the different colours pretty much, and it's actually a real pain in the bum to try and film in the spray booth because the camera's right in the way, so I have to kind of sit back with my arms stretched out. It's not a comfortable process at all, trying to spray stuff whilst also trying to film in the spray booth. So yeah, didn't need to show you lots of different things. Just that one step. Now, in that last section before that, I did mention I wasn't going to do any pre-shading. However, I kind of changed my mind a bit, and I'll explain that in a moment. But we've got all the whites done, or rather the very, very light purples, and we've got some variation in the shade. Again, I'll explain that in a moment. We have the medium sort of purple colour, the light, sort of really light lilac-y colour, lavender colour, which is the Mecha colour purple, just straight. And then we have the dark purple, which it's not that, and it's not that. You remember I said I was torn between the two colours? I'll explain what I've done in a moment. For the white colours, what I basically did was I mixed my paint too thin. The mixture of bone white, white grey and the ever so slight touch of the purple, I mixed it a bit too thin. Now not so thin that I couldn't spray it, but thin enough that I couldn't just blap it on in a solid coat. So I had to build it up really slowly, as you saw in that last segment. Now, the advantage of that was it made me realise that I could use the grey primer coat as a pre-shade coat. I hadn't gone ahead and done any pre-shading where you actually paint specific recesses and lines with the dark colour. I just left it as the grey primer, but it meant I was able to build up colour in some of the recesses. Now, it's not really evident on the shield much, but I can show you here the difference, because you can see here this bit's darker. I didn't need to paint because it's covered up by other parts. But it's this kind of effect I was looking for, and you've got another bit here where that's going to be covered up, so I didn't put as much paint in there. But you've got like bright areas here, and then you've got darker areas here or here where there's less paint, because I'm building it up in really thin misty layers. And it just meant I can get some variation. So like on this part here, it's a little darker towards the top, but only slightly. I kind of built up the paint that way and built it up slowly in layers. Just gives some subtle variations. There's a nice brighter white colour here and not quite as bright at the top. And then we have the dark purple. Now if you remember earlier on I said I'd mixed two purple colours, this kind of grey purple and this kind of burgundy colour. I wasn't sure which to use. In the end I used both. I did it with the with the grey purple first, and it looked a bit meh. It looked a bit lifeless and boring. I'm like, it's not very exciting. Oh, so I thought, I don't really want to have to strip the paint off. So all I did was, I got some of the more burgundy colour and just misted it over the top, and it changed the tint enough. Now, these were originally both mixed with that purple mecha colour, which is opaque like brick. So again, there's no pre-shading on there, but that's not a biggie. But it just made this nice intermediate colour of the two, kind of a bluey reddy purple. It's quite nice. It's not quite grey purple, which is boring. It's not quite the burgundy, which is a bit too close to the original Strike Rouge. It's this nice intermediate sort of purple colour. So that is done. Now, there's not many of these pink and purple parts, but there you go. But that's all the armour now sorted out. Now, if you notice, it looks kind of white or grey. Yeah, put it next to something white, you realise it's not. You just get that. You don't really see the purple in that until you put it next to something that is actually bright white. And then you just start to get that tint. It's only a very, very subtle hint. So again, this is a very light purple. Keep that in mind. So now this is all painted. There's nothing really more to do. We've not got a lot of weathering to do. We're just going to maybe do a gunk wash later on with some enamels, because the client doesn't want this weathered. So no chipping or anything like that. So we can go ahead and get the decals done up. Now, I'm going to be using Bandai and third-party decals, which can be a bit of a pig sometimes to get into recesses and to conform to edges. So I'm going to have to get handy with some decal fluids, setting fluids. Now, I'm going to gloss varnish these before I do the decals. Now, there's a whole big fight going on the internet at the minute about whether you need to gloss varnish before decals or not. Sometimes I've been a bit handy with decal solutions and it's actually affected the finish of the paint. It's eaten into the paint surface, and then when I've come along and done a filter or a wash later on, you get this massive tide mark that you can't sort out. You don't see it until you get a wash in there. So sometimes in the past, it's my own fault, but I've done it in such a way that I've affected the paint surface. I don't know how these mecha colours will react to the setting solutions if I get a bit handy. And with the decals I've got, I'm going to need to use them. So I'm not going to take any risks. I'm not going to gloss this because I want a smooth surface for the decals. I'm going to gloss this because I want to protect the paints from all the setting solutions I'm about to slather all over them, because I will. I'm hopeless. Like, I'm cack handy when it comes to being precision with setting solutions. I just slap it everywhere. So I'm going to put a gloss coat down to protect the paint, purely to protect the paint. Then we'll get the decals on, and then we'll do another gloss coat purely to seal in the decals, so that when I do any washes later on, it's not going to seep under any decals. They'll be locked away and sealed away, so that any washes will just go over the top. They won't go underneath. Now, one other thing I'm going to bring up is what I'm going to gloss with, and this is another internet monkey fight that's going on at the minute. I'm going to use Pledge Floor Care Finish 2 times more shine. 2 times more shine. My favourite non-model making gloss coat. My favourite utility gloss coat. Again, there's another on. If you're new to all this, there is another whole monkey poop fight on the internet about whether you should use Pledge or not. I'm not going to get into that. All I will say is I've been using Pledge for many, many years. I've never had any problems with it. It's never gone yellow. It's never fallen off. It's never gone flaky. So, yeah, don't worry about that argument. I'm going to use Pledge Floor Care Finish. 2 times more shine. 2 times more shine. The utility coat. If you want to use proper model making gloss varnishes, you can do. It's entirely up to you. I've just got litres of that stuff and it's a lot cheaper. So we're going to get these gloss coated. We're going to get the decals on, and we're going to get them gloss coated again. So I'll go and get the spray booth ready, and then we'll do some gloss painting. Well, gloss varnishing, not painting. Okay, so here we are back in the spray booth of my trusty Neo-Free water. Now, the process for spraying the gloss varnish is kind of almost the same as spraying paint. The only differences really are that the pledge that I'm using here is very, very thin, so you can drop the pressure down. I typically spray pledge around about 12, maybe as far as 15 psi, typically around about 12. And I have the needle brake, the spinny bit on the back of the airbrush that locks how far I can pull the trigger, almost all the way to the right, so I can't pull it back very far. And the trick here, as with paints, is to start off with a very thin mist layer first, and then go in with 2 heavier coats of the gloss varnish. Remember, the thin first misty layer is just your key coat, just to give the next coat something to grip to, and the next 2 coats are the actual proper in anger gloss varnish coats. They're going to be a bit heavier, not like so thick they're running off the sides and dripping, but a bit heavier, because obviously a thicker coat will give the varnish chance to self-level and become really flat and smooth more effectively than if you just misted every single coat on. So unlike a paint where it's constant misty coats, varnish is 1 mist coat as a key coat and then 2 thicker, heavier coats. At least for pledge. Other gloss varnishes may have different requirements, but you should always start with the key coat. The way I tend to do it is to apply a key coat first, and then you can see me here wiggling my hand around a lot. That kind of means I'm blowing just air, because I'll do a key coat, give it 10, 15 or 20 seconds of just air from the airbrush to flash it off. Then I'll go in with a heavier coat like I am now. I'll move much slower. This is speeded up by the way, but I'll move much slower when I'm spraying the heavier coats. And then this will go wiggly when I'm doing the air, and then I'll spray another coat, and then I'll do air, and then I'll spray the second coat. So I tend to do a key coat, flash it off with air, do a thicker coat, flash it off with air for a few seconds, 20 seconds, then a thicker coat, and then that can be put to one side. And when you put it to one side, make sure to put it somewhere where it's going to be dust free. Put it in a box or somewhere where the dust can't fall on it, because trust me, gloss varnishes are dust magnets. And there we have all the parts now, lovely and glossy and shiny, all looking nice and sparkly. Now there was a little another nuance to the whole gloss coating thing. I mentioned earlier on, the reason I was doing it was to protect the paint from the decal solutions. There is another reason why I've gone ahead and glossed everything. I've glossed all the armour parts now, because I'm not going to be putting a decal on every single piece of armour. So there will be a certain percentage of the parts that will have no decals on at all. So you could say, well, why didn't I just gloss those parts, the parts that have decals on, and get them done? Well, I'll also want to do some pin washing, possibly, or some enamel gunk washing. Either way, either pin washes or enamel gunk wash, I need a gloss surface. I need a shiny, smooth surface for those. And that's where I do need a shiny surface, because I need the pin wash to run and flow along the surface. It's a lot easier for me to just go ahead now and gloss everything, stick decals where they need to go, the paint protected from the decal setting solutions that I'll get really handy with. When the decals are on, just gloss varnish the pieces that have decals on, and then what I have then is a collection of all the pieces, some with just one coat of gloss varnish because they've had no decals but they're glossed ready for pin wash, and some with 2 coats of gloss varnish because the decals are on them and they're sealed in and they're also ready for pin washes. So it's just a time saving thing. I'm going to need to gloss everything anyway for a pin wash. I may as well gloss everything, and then once the decals are on, do an extra bit of gloss on those just to lock those in. Okay, so let's get cracking. So what do we need for decals? Now, if you've watched any of my videos before, you've done this before, you know what you're doing. But we'll go through it for anyone who's watching who might be a beginner, never done water slides before. Don't panic. Water slides are one of those things that people think are terrifying, but are not terrifying. And there's only a few things you need. Now, the kit itself comes with horrible stickers. Horrible stickers. Don't do stickers. Nonsense, middle class adhesive. You also get some shiny stickers with the kit. These are called foil stickers, and again, these are all stripes, but the advantage to these is they are printed outside the area that's been cut. You can see here on the yellow bit, the stripes, if you pull the stripe off, it's got ink on all around it, so there's no actual clear film, so you could theoretically still use these, but we're probably not going to use any of these either, but you do get these in the kit. They're horrible. And last of all, you get dry rubs. They're basically printed on this film. There's a piece of frosted paper behind, but you see there, if I can move the frosted paper, they're on this clear film. What you do is you basically rub these onto the model with an eraser or your finger or a round edge of, say, your tweezers or something, or the end of a brush, something like that. You rub them on and they adhere to the model, and there's no carrier film at all. Now, in terms of all the ways of doing markings, these are the most prettiest. These look the best. They have no film at all. They just go on. They look like they're painted on. Downside of these is, if you screw it up, you're kind of knackered. They're not easy to do, and if you get it in the wrong place, you can't move it. However, what I'm going to do, instead of using any of those three that come with the kit, is use some water slide decals. Water slide decals are kind of the best alternative to dry rubs, because water slide decals are usually very high quality, and they do have a carrier film around the edge, but you apply them with water, and when you put it on the model you can move it around, position it exactly where you want it, and then let it dry out, and it's on there. And if they're good quality decals, and once you've done all your varnishing and everything else, you won't see the carrier film. It'll be hidden away and they'll look painted on. So we're going to use water slides. So if you've never done water slides before, don't be afraid. You only need some really basic equipment. You need the water slides, obviously. You need the thing you want to put the water slides on. There you go. Gloss varnished or not gloss varnished, I will leave that up to you to make that decision. You'll need a sharp craft knife or hobby knife or some kind of scalpel. You don't necessarily need a fresh blade in this, but make sure it's a sharp blade, not a blunt, nasty blade. You'll need probably a couple of pairs of fine tweezers, 1 or 2 pairs. I use these. I use a curvy blade, tips like those, and the normal pointy ones. You need a brush, just any old brush, and you will need, ideally, some kind of decal setting solution. Now this is the stuff that I've put the gloss coat on the paint job for, purely to protect from. I'm going to be using Microset and Microsol from Microscale Industries. These are basically my decal, can't get my words out, decal setting solutions. This is one that prepares the decal to go on the model and make sure it beds down as well as possible. And this is another solvent, and this one melts the decal down and helps it bed down and suck down to the surface once it's on there. And they're very straightforward to use, but because you can put too much of this on and potentially ruin your paint job, that's why I've got this gloss coat on here. Not because I want a smooth surface for the decals. Not going to go over that again. Now what we're going to do is put some decals on these shoulder parts. Now you're going to see me use tweezers to move decals around. I get shouted at for doing that because I should use a brush because I might damage the decal. My little sort of excuse and caveat is that I've been doing this for so long that I'm quite comfortable moving a decal around with tweezers. Oh, one other thing you might need is some cotton buds or Q-tips. However, if you are just starting out, you probably want to use a brush or cotton buds / Q-tips instead of tweezers for moving things around. But that's up to you. If you think you're able to, use your cotton buds. Use your tweezers. Can't get my words out. One other thing you need is a small amount of warm water. It needs to be warm. Cold water's fine. It's just it'll take longer for the decal to come off the backing paper if it's cold water. So not hot, just warm. And a bit of tissue to damp things down on. So I've got a bit of tissue here. So what we're going to do, first thing we're going to do is take off the decal we want. Now I've got the 2 shoulder parts here. Now I know which is which. I know it's very important because when you put these on, you have different decals for the front of the arm and the back of the arm. So I need to know which one I'm doing. Now it's very easy in this case because the front piece is just flat like that, and the back piece has this panel line here and a little dimple in the corner. So that's how I know that's the back and that's the front. And I know they're both for the left arm because right from the start, like I've explained to you before, I've kept all the different parts in different piles. So the left arm, right arm, left leg, right leg, torso, backpack, head, things like that, feet. I've kept them all in discrete separate piles so I don't get things mixed up. So that's why it's good to have a little organiser. Remember right at the start I had all the parts in the organiser tray? That's why you want one. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the 2 parts. So when you look at your instructions, it will have a call out. It will say you need, for the left arm, you need this decal here, which is decal 29. Or if you want to, it does give you an option. It says you can use sticker number, these are sticker references, sticker number 29, or if you want, you can use sticker number 30, which is the same thing with a number after it. Now if we look at the sticker sheet, we have sticker number 29 is there, and we've got there's 2 sticker 30s here. So they're giving you a choice of which one you want to use. You can use either one if you want. Doesn't really matter. Now, when you get in water slides, these are official Bandai water slides, and one advantage of official Bandai water slides is that for the most part, the numbers match on the water slide sheet to the sticker sheet. So I want 29 and 30, not always, but for the most part. Now on this one, it's a bit different because it doesn't match, because these parts aren't numbered. But here you can see I have, that's the equivalent of sticker number 29. It's the little, it looks like a hedgehog, but it's actually a lion's head. The little lion's head there is the equivalent of that, and this one here, unnumbered, is the equivalent of one of those. You don't get both of them. Remember, this is a generic sheet with a few decals that you might need. Now I can use these, but for the most part, for the generic ones, you do get similarities, like these 2 water slide decals here, number 47 there for the beam rifle, and it says beam rifle. If I look on the sticker sheet, because there we go, 47 is there, and it's exactly the same marking. So for the most part, the water slide decals and the sticker sheets you get with the kit do tally up. So when you're going through the instructions, they do match up. But because this is a generic sheet, it's not specifically for the Stripe Rouge. It's not got everything on it. The third party one I've got is basically all the Stripe Rouge markings turned into a water slide decal set. It's not from Bandai. These are official Bandais. So what we're going to do, we're going to take out, we're going to have decal number I think I like the lion head that looks like a hedgehog, but I also like the version of it that has the number after it. It's quite nice. It just looks more militaristic. Now in this build, of course, you have the option on the other arm. There's another decal on the back here where again you can have CRB or whatever it says there, or another number 30 decal on the other arm. Now we only have one, so what I might do is put this one on the front, and on the other arm I'll just go with the other decals that aren't anything like that. So we're going to put this one on the front, and of course the front is the one with no panel line on it. So what you need to do, dead simple for doing decals, get your craft knife, what you'll see on the sheet, and then remember I'm doing this for absolute beginners, so if you know all this, there's nothing for you to learn here. But if you're new to all this, if you look on the sheet there, if I can get the light to catch it, I don't know if I can, you'll see there's the printing itself, and then there's this film around the printing, this clear film. Now Bandai decals are quite well behaved in that the clear film, called the carrier film, kind of doesn't stick out far past the printing. They're very good at that. Some decals you'll have a load of film around the edge and they'll look terrible and you have to trim it down, but these are actually pretty good at making sure the film really doesn't really go far past the printed area. So for Bandai decals, you don't need to worry about trimming them down. You just get your nice sharp blade and just excise it from the sheet even. Use my words, Fox, use my words. And that's what you need to do. Now if it was to say a third party decal where the carrier film may stick out a lot further, oops, bang, then you might have film all around the edge. Then what you might want to do is just trim along just close to where the printing is, just to reduce the amount of film that's going to stick out, because that's what you're going to see when you put the decal on the model. You're going to see this film around the edge. So what do? Dead simple. You put your knife to one side where you're not going to knock it off the desk and stab yourself in the leg, because yes, I've done that before. Yeah. What we need to do is we need to get our water. Also, I recommend keeping your sheet of decals nowhere near your tray of water, because if you get water on your decal sheet, you're a sad puppy. We need to get the marking now off the paper sheet, so we're going to put that in the water just for 20 or 30 seconds. I'll do it on camera. Remember, it's warm water. If the water is cold, it just takes a bit longer, that's all. 10 or 15 seconds. And then what I should do is take that out, put it on my desk there, and what I'm going to do is get a bit more water from the tray and just make a little pool of water around the decal, so that water can keep working on the decal. Now you can just leave the decal in the tray and let the water in the tray do its job, but I like to have it on the desk here. And what we're waiting for is for this decal, the printing on this decal, to separate away from the backing paper. The blue backing paper is the bit you don't want. So let's just give this a second. What I like to do is just every now and then, very gently, just touch it with the brush and see if it moves. It won't at first. My mortar may have gone a bit cold because it took a while to set up. Just leave it for a few seconds. This is the boring bit. I'm going to have a swig of coffee while we're waiting. You talk amongst yourselves. Oh. Nom 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 nom. Nom 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 nom. So yeah, don't forget, of course, like I said, I'm aiming this series at absolute beginners. So if you do know how to do water slide decals, you might not learn anything new in this section. So you can see it's just starting to move there a little bit, just a little bit. But don't force it. Now what I tend to do sometimes is, again, I tend to nudge it with tweezers like this. But this is where people shout at me. So if you're not experienced, don't do this. Yeah. Use a brush. Right, okay, it's moving freely now, so there we go. Right, so what we're going to do is we are going to, because we're not applied the decal yet, we're going to use Micro Set, which is the blue one. It's the one in the blue bottle. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get my brush that I use for Micro Set, which is here. I'm going to brush a little bit of it on the piece I want to put the decal on. Not a lot, just a little bit. Then I'm going to pick up the decal. You don't need to do the Micro Set, it just comes in handy. And we're going to, quite simply, slide the decal off the sheet onto the piece. Now the reason I've put the Micro Set underneath there is purely because that's now underneath the decal, so first thing it'll do is make the decal move a little easier on the surface. I'm going to use tweezers. Remember, if you're not experienced, don't do this. First of all, it gives a bit of lubrication for the decal on the surface, so you can move it around a bit easier. But also, it'll be under there now, so it'll help this bed in a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to position this wherever you want it on the decal as it's supposed to go. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to put it here. Make sure it's all lined up and nice and straight. Very gently move this decal. If you're not experienced but you want to use tweezers to move things around, because I find tweezers better than a brush, because a brush tends to bend and it gets quite frustrating if it doesn't want to move much. Move it around to where you want it. If you're using tweezers, if you're not sure, just push from the edge of the decal, push on the clear film, not on the decal itself. But I get shouted at for doing this, but I've been doing this for so long, I know what I'm doing. So that looks pretty straight and lined up to me. Almost, hang on. I'll use this straight line here in this little recess as a guide to judge it. Maybe not quite straight, there we go. It's a bit straighter. So what I'm going to do now is we want to get all the water out from underneath to get rid of any air that might be trapped underneath, and you get yourself a cotton bud. And what you're going to do is put it on top and roll it. Not particularly hard, but you're not just going to drag it across. You're going to roll it. You're going to twist your fingers and thumb like that and roll the cotton bud. So dead simple. If you can do it on camera, you just get the cotton bud very gently and just roll it along. And what that does, that will squeeze out any water from underneath the decal and any micro set that might be under there that hasn't already, you know, worked its way into the decal film. And just very gently squeeze that out, because what you don't want is you don't want air to get trapped underneath if you can avoid it. Because what happens is with the decal, the whole art of the decal is to make that clear film around the decal disappear as much as possible. Now, it's never going to completely vanish because there's always a height difference between the top of the decal and the top of the plastic part. It's microscopic, but it's there. You're never going to get rid of it. And there'll always be a bit of a shine difference. You can always tell. But if you get lots of air trapped under there, then your decal may be all wrinkly, and then you'll see wrinkles on the surface when you hold it up to the light. You can see there it's not gone on particularly wrinkly, but it does have a different specularity. There's a difference between the shiny plastic, paint and gloss varnish and the bit of the decal. You can see the film there. So we need to work on that to get that to disappear as much as possible. And once another gloss coat has gone on top of this, and then you've got weathering and a matte coat, it will hide even more. And eventually, once you finish your model, they'll look invisible. They'll look like they're painted on. But for the moment, it looks like a decal. But what we want to do is make sure there's just nothing under. There's no air trapped under there. No water, because we don't want air to stay under there, because that's what's called silvering. If you get these little grey patches and bubbles, anything like that underneath the decal where it's not quite touching the plastic, so you've got the plastic here and then the decal's got like a gap, it's where air gets stuck in. It's called silvering, and that's what you want to try and avoid. So that's why you squeeze this down, just to get any air out. So that is on. So how do we make it bed down even more? Now this is a nice flat surface. It's not particularly hard to do a decal on a nice flat surface. However, if there was detail on here, for example, I should have done this one really, if there was a big panel line right in the middle here, you'd want to make sure the decal would bed down into that panel line and look realistic, and this is where your microsol comes in. Now other decal setting solutions are available. There's Mr. Mark Setter and Mr. Mark Softer, do basically the same job. They are a bit more powerful than Microset and Microsol, so be careful with those. Humbrol do a solution called Decal Fix, which I've tried using it and it's just not powerful enough to do anything, to be honest. Your mileage may vary, but I kind of found it to be a bit rubbish. It didn't really do anything, as most of Humbrol's products, and others are available. I like Microset and Microsol. So that's on there. So what we need to do now, even though it's on a flat surface, we need to keep it sort of bedding down. We need to persuade it to bed down as much to the surface as possible. Now, if there was a recessed detail here, like a panel line, or if there was a rivet sticking up and with the decal was kind of all distorted around a raised detail, which is another situation where you want the decal to conform to a raised surface. Say there was a rivet in the middle here and you've got this big air bubble around it because the decal's like a tent pole. The rivet's like a tent pole and the decal's like that over the tent pole. You want it to bed down. So what you do is you get your microsol, a little bit on your brush, and what you do is very carefully just brush it over the decal. Now what I tend to do is just do it over the decal, get it in the light so I can see the clear carrier film, get the microsol on the decal, and just restrict myself to the clear film of the decal and just go over the edge of it a little tiny bit so that the micro sol can seep underneath the edge and work its way underneath the decal. And what that will do, that will soften the decal, and in softening it, it dissolves the clear film a little tiny bit, like microscopically, and it softens it, and it helps it stretch out a little bit and then stretch and then contract back again and adhere to the surface. It sucks it down. And if we do if on this flat surface, we might need to do 1 or 2 coats, like 1 or 2 of what I've just done there, and it'll look fine. If it was a lumpy surface, or it had raised details like rivets, or it had recessed details like panel lines, you might need to do several coats just to get it to conform to those raised or recessed details. Now 1 or 2 coats will be fine on here because it's flat, but if you had raised details, you might need 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 coats. All you do, if you do multiple coats, is get it on there, give it 5 minutes to dry out, and then go ahead and do another coat. And over time, the decal will thin, it'll soften, and it'll start to conform to uneven surfaces. So there you go, so that's that. So I'm going to leave that to dry for a little bit, maybe do another 3rd coat, and then we'll be done. I will now go and get the rest of the model decaled and get all the decals on there. There's many of them, so I'm not going to sit here and wait you watch while we do all that. And we'll leave it here for this episode. What I'll do, I'm actually going to do a live stream of doing all the decals. So if you're a patron and you're watching this and it's maybe Tuesday or Wednesday when the video's gone up, then I shall be doing one later in the week, a live stream while I'm just sitting here doing the decals, hanging out with you guys. If you're not a patron and you're watching this a week after, it'll be the next video in the playlist, basically, because this will be a week old by now. So I will go and get all the rest of these decals done. I might see you in the live stream while I live stream doing this. If not, I'll see you in the next episode. So what's next after this? Well, once this is done, I'll need to go over and gloss varnish the ones with decals again to lock the decals in, and then we're on to the whatever weathering we're going to do then, get the suit assembled. Then we can crack on with the Ootori backpack, the striker backpack. So we're going to leave it there anyway. We'll stop for now. So thank you so much for watching. As always, don't forget, if you want to join the coolest, best, hippest, most friendliest group for model making on the internet, go and join the Model Makers Boom Hut, address here, facebook.com/groups/model boom hut. Best group in the universe. Everybody's dead friendly, they'll look after it, you can show off your stuff, you'll get loads of good feedback. There's no snark, no bitchiness, and no nastiness allowed. Just not allowed. There you go. Utter free speech. Just don't be a dick. We'll kick you out. There you go. It's a dead friendly place. Go and join in. Make lots of new friends. And of course, don't forget, if you'd like to help support this channel and keep this channel going, do pop along to my Patreon page, patreon.com/model making guru. Every little helps, all support is gratefully acknowledged. It keeps this channel going. And this build is a Patreon reward for one of my top tier patrons who supports me every month. His reward is a skill level 5 master grade Gunpla. You can also, if you want, if you prefer Warhammer, I can do Warhammer kits for you. Just let me know. But that's open, that's up for all top level patrons. So yeah, check it out. Maybe you want to support me. I'd be lovely. No, it would be lovely. I need more coffee. It would be lovely if you did. Anyway, until next time, take care of yourselves, go make something awesome, go be awesome, yes, you there, you, the enormous finger, you there, go and be awesome, and take care of yourselves, and I'll say, adios amoebas. My glove's making that little noise when I wiggle my fingers again. You...